Welcome to the Three Body Narrative Podcast. We are your hosts, Pradyum, Aaron, and Naeem. Well, Naeem isn't here, and we probably know why that is. It's because he is our very precious winter lamb. More like he ate a winter lamb, but anyway. Here we are to talk about, rate, and review Sheep Detectives. So again, I think this is a movie that Naeem and I had, I think, watched the trailer for, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I'm excited that we can finally review this. So before we move ahead, let's kind of talk about what the Sheep Detectives is all about. Well, it follows a flock of sheep living in the English village of Denbrook, and they it's their attempt to solve the murder of the beloved shepherd George Hardy. It's actually inspired by a book, and I mean they're also inspired by the murder mystery novels that George reads to them every night. And inspired by it, they take matters into their own, not hands but hooves, to investigate the crime and uncover a $30 million motive. Or is it pounds? I don't know. But yes, let's start with our ratings first. So, Aaron, shepherd us away.
Well, to get started with, I think it was a pretty interesting movie. I think it was one of those feel good kind of movies, but I don't think it was anything that was like too deep or too kind of, you know, uh, it was quite a simplistic movie in what they kind of went, how they kind of went about it in terms of the story and everything. I haven't read the book to see how true to the book it was, but yeah, I think overall it was a nice one. In terms of rating, I'd probably give it 2.5 stars. I think the acting was quite nice. The voicing of the sheeps and stuff also was pretty well done. I think you kind of capture the emotions and stuff that you wanted to come across with the sheeps and stuff like that. So that was quite nicely done. The only reason I don't give it anything higher was because, again, the story was quite simplistic and it wasn't anything that was going to kind of blow your mind or anything like that. So, nice movie, probably one for the kids and a family watch if that's something that you're into. But yeah, I think overall a decent watch, and the fact that we were able to kind of stream it online also makes it one of those worth watching, I guess.
Okay, all right. So I agree with you to an extent, and I think I'll give this a 3.5. I think yes, in terms of the storyline and in terms of the murder mystery part of it, right? I think there are two plots or two parallels kind of uh, stories, I would say, that are happening at the same time. And I think in terms of like just the murder mystery, it's very simplistic. I kind of figured it out early on, and it didn't do anything extraordinary or get me on the edge of my seat really wanting me to solve it. So for that, I think there's a significant downgrade for that, given the fact that the movie is called The Sheep Detectives. However, for me, a large part of this movie, of why this movie works, is because of that emotional aspect. I love the voice cast. I love the just the what would I call it, the motives, no, or like the overarching story about like loneliness and being one with the flock, and all of that, right? Like there were different uh ideas. I'm trying to think of what that word is, but essentially like different topics that were discussed throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whether it be Sebastian and how his backstory, the whole winter lamb conversation, just people, I guess, also maybe paralleling to what you see in real life about people just being cooped up in one particular area, so them being able to explore what the life that they the, the life beyond what they kind of know.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think I love that aspect. I love the emotional takes. I love the voice cast was unbelievable. And I think that's something that I really liked. I also loved like the quaint town of Denbrook and the people around it. I think they had enough personality for me to have a good time. And I think I like that aspect more. I think the murder mystery kind of gets pushed aside when this takes place, or when we
Mm.
have these scenes. So yeah, I think a 3.5. It's a good, fun time watching it. Like I think you'll have fun with. I think both adults and kids will have fun. I mean, going into this, right? Like you mentioned, like when I watched the trailer, I was skeptical of how this movie would play out because sheep's being detective, sheep's talking. You could have it very like hammy, and you could have made it very comical, very root one, and just made it for kids, pure kids. But I think there's enough even there for the adults, especially with the undertones of all of this loneliness and being part of a herd, and just finding your belonging. Right? I think
Yeah.
there's enough subtlety there that I think adults will pick up on, and kids will have fun. I think with the very basic murder mystery kind of thing. I think that's not for the adults. For the adults, it's more the emotional side. So I love the fact that they give you enough balance for both aspects. All right. I mean, I would have loved for to hear what Naeem also would have had to say. I feel like this is something that, maybe would have been down his alley. I think he
Yeah. Yeah, I think he loves the whole emotional this thing, and yeah, and you kind of also you would kind of see him picking up on the more uh how someone being misunderstood and being judged when you're kind of not really understood, and being judged based on the misconceptions and who they really were and stuff like that way. So I think he would pick up on that and would have had quite a bit to say, like he normally does anyway. But
I know.
uh,
I
yeah,
felt like going on. I was like, shit. I'm talking as much as he would during the ratings. Let's keep it. But okay,
yeah,
I think let's talk about the easiest part of this movie, which is the murder mystery. Because, like you mentioned, I think it's pretty straightforward, simple, and
yeah,
honestly speaking, I think if anybody paid attention, I think it would have been solved in the first 10 minutes when the blue blanket with the green stain was there. Right?
yeah,
Initially, I was like, what was that? There's something that's there about it, and it didn't click me that he was staying there for the dye and the
yeah,
blue thing to work out. I like the little bit of like it kind of did throw me off, but at the same time, because you've got a fair few uh, well-known names, and also the fact that I think like a couple of the other suspects, I think, were just too obvious, right?
yeah.
The butcher or like Caleb, it'll be too obvious, and I guess even the daughter.
Yeah, I think the thing with the daughter kind of became too convenient in terms of all the evidence that piled up against her. And so you kind of knew like that couldn't be the case. In terms of the Butcher and Caleb, also, I mean, yeah, I think they tried to kind of throw some of the viewers off with that kind of whole argument where he gets kicked out of the of his camper van or whatever in the start. But yeah, it that kind of didn't sit right. I think even when the culprit in the end, like when he has that car accident, I think that's when you first kind of think like, wait, like it was just rain. So what happened? How did you how did you manage
So
to crash into it?
yeah, it's a weird edit, right? Because they pan to something and then suddenly they come and his cars got hit, and I'm like,
Yeah,
obviously they're going to reference that at some point. Now my thing was some sheep or the other would like have come in his way and he's
yeah,
turned weirdly, and I thought that would be integral. But since nothing was happening, I was like, "Ooh, that's a weird, weird cut to
yeah,
have him just hit the tree, like you mentioned, it's just raining."
yeah. So that was kind of a weird one. Um, But yeah, I think like you said, it was pretty straightforward in the end. But I think there was still enough intrigue to kind of see like how they would kind of tie the whole thing together, and so that was what was enjoyable about the movie, was that yes, it was straightforward, but they still had enough kind of, I won't say twist and turns, but kind of these subtleties to kind of, in case you are one of those that kind of overthinks the plot a little too much, you could go down various rabbit holes. So that was quite nice.
Correct, because obviously, like you could make it too convoluted that at the end of the day it doesn't make sense. But I think this did. Um, I did have an inkling, especially when at the will hearing she puts the phone and she like Peter talks on through the speaker, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think he's in South Africa. Like there's clearly something there. I like the subtlety, or I think I like that little bit of that moment of that it being his hair dye turning it
Mm.
green, because I understood the blue and I saw the green hands and the blue hands. I was like, there's something there, but I didn't
Yeah.
expect it to be like the blue and the yellow dye mixing up. And kudos to
Yeah.
anyone who's actually who recognized that early on.
Yeah. To anyone who figured out it was the hair dye, I mean, like, that's crazy. Because I think when they initially are at like, well, it was not a murder scene at that time, but when they come to the uh, place that Hugh Jackman's character was at, I think they kind of show those paint cans around the back, and so my head went straight to that maybe there was something to do with the paint or something like that way, and that's why the hands were those colors. But yeah, pretty amazing if someone actually put those two together, saying it was the head eye and that.
Honestly, like when the blue, which we turn, it turns out to be a blue pillow cover, right? Like I thought it was a
Yeah.
raincoat, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
because it was large enough to cover Mopple's eyes and everything, right? So I was like, that
Yeah.
I didn't even think of it to be a pillow cover, and
Yeah.
then it's pretty cool that it's his hair and the color that gets that. But yeah, that was that threw me off slightly because I was like, okay, it's clearly it's. I mean, it's hinting at something there, but I didn't really
Yeah.
put two and two together that it was going to be Elliot or whatever that guy. Uh, yeah. So over, I think yeah, like you mentioned, I think going in like the setting up, especially of this murder mystery, I think it took some time, right? Because initially they were kind of building up on like him and his sheep and his
Yeah.
flock and how he's doing it, and I felt like that got took me time to get used to because I'm like so used to like the Knives Out thing of like deaths being quick
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
movement. But I think it was well. I think the outcome or whatever the end goal of him when he dies, when George dies, I think the payoff is deserved in the sense that you really like when Lily puts her head onto his hand, right? Like when he died. I'm like, okay, that really you really feel it because you spend time with them. You spend even 10-15 minutes or whatever, but you spend enough time to know that they really care for each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was a good addition to the movie because, again, the whole story was about, how the sheeps were trying to forget. And so, because you build this bond, then it kind of justifies why, in this particular case, that some of them chose to remember, or all of them chose to remember at least George's character and stuff like that way. So I think that was quite a nice payoff. And then it also kind of ties into the whole thing where the conflict of forgetting Caleb is like, getting into the butchering business and sort of that sort of stuff. So like the rest of the flock choose to forget, while these two, Mopple and Lily, I think they decide that they are going to keep that memory and
Hmm.
continue with the investigation and all that kind of stuff. So I think that emotional aspect and stuff was quite needed in terms of giving depth and weight to the story and how it progressed.
Yeah. Uh, I just want to kind of draw parallels. Like when I saw one was that scene with Lily putting her head on like George's hand, right? Just saying kind of
Yeah,
right there. And I think at the end where she looks up and she sees the cloud of Sebastian, like gave me
yeah,
proper Lion King vibes, right? I'm
yeah,
like this is emotional. Like damn man, you don't have to go that far.
yeah. You could even to an extent picture the same Lion King music when you saw Sebastian shaped cloud over there. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty cool.
Uh, so let's talk about the voice cast. I mean, so we've got two casts. One's the voice cast, and then the actual live human cast, right? And
Yeah.
you've got a pretty decent cast. Right? It was hilarious to see that something as ridiculous as sheep talking and sheep detectives was garnered such a massive cast. But let's talk about the voice cast because I think for me that was the standout more than the human cast. Any specific favorites for you in terms of characters?
Well, in terms of characters, uh, Bryan Cranston as Sebastian. I think you know it had a good mix in terms of how him being quite nonchalant about the herd mentality, but also in some places you kind of saw him trying to be a little bit funny, but the way it was like you really kind of felt understood it because it's like the serious character that is trying to be funny or sarcastic. And in real life that's also how it plays, where like it is funny but you're like probably not the best delivered because it's coming from a character you expect to be serious, and so they kind of got that kind of quite spot on in terms of that, because you're like this is believable because he's not meant to be the one with the jokes. So I liked how that came across. Lily's character also, because I mean the amount of time I guess that she was on screen, you knew that it had to be a character that was played right, and I think that was done also very well. Uh, the whole how the emotion was put across and stuff like that. I really liked how that was done, and so yeah, I think these two were the standout. And then yeah, you had a few of the goofier ones in terms of Mopper. I forget the name of that guy who uh, the one with the big horns.
Oh
Like
yeah,
a sim. I forgot his name.
the
But yeah,
one
even he.
the one who had Orf.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Even he, though like it was just one-liners and like very less in terms of what he had in terms of dialogue. I think whenever he had something to say, it was like quite spot on and was captured the moment. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. For me, I think like you're right. I think Sebastian definitely not only the way Bryan Cranston delivers his dialogue, but I just love the sort of sad backstory that he has. I mean, a very
Yeah,
emotional aspect of it, which again I think pays off brilliantly with at the end, right? For him,
yeah,
I just wish maybe I don't know whether he deserved to die per se because I think like the guy had gone
yeah,
through enough. So it would have been nice to kind of have him back with the flock, but yeah, it was nice that he was there to protect his flock, right? That even I
yeah.
think from the time when we were introduced of him standing on top of that cliff, you could always see that maybe if, even though he was like alone and aloof, like he was still sort of watching over the entire.
Yeah, it felt like a very, like one of those leaders that watched from a distance, just overlooking to make sure everything was all right. And yeah, that was a pretty cool moment. I think, like you said, I don't know if whether the death was really something that they needed to. Maybe they could have had like something where like he takes the little guy, the other winter lamb, who in the end gets named George, I think, again
Yeah.
after Hugh Jackman's character. So it would have been cool if like he took him under his wing or maybe together they both kind of get integrated into the flock or something like that. That would have been nice. But yeah, I think also the his sacrifice won't go to vain kind of thing also paid off in the end. But yeah, I mean, I would have liked to see Sebastian kind of live on, I guess.
Yeah. I For me the other standout character, while I love Lily and I mean Julia Louis Dreyfus does an insane job, I I really like Mopple. And most I think yes he had the comedic thing and obviously like Chris O'Dowd from the It Crowd crazy like he is known for his comedic sense and everything.
Yeah.
But what I loved is the fact that he's the only one who remembers everything. Like I love the part
Mm.
where he's the one who's reassuring that when sheep die they become clouds. I loved the panic in his voice when Lily finds out about the meat business that both
Mm.
the butcher and all are in, because he knows all of it, right? And he knows the darkness, and he knows like the reality of what happens to a lot of the sheep. And I love that he always chooses to remember. And when that moment comes out, you're like, shit, man, the amount of burden and the sort of like it it does eat up. Like everyone else is so like lives such a good life because they continue to keep forgetting. But here you have
Yeah.
a guy who's taken up all of this, like not burden but a lot of the darkness, and he's just compartmentalized it quite well. So I love that.
Yeah. And it kind of again is quite a relatable thing, right? Because in his case, it was like he didn't have the ability to forget,
Hmm.
and so even with all that kind of, I guess, darkness or sorrow, however you want to call it, like he has all of that with no one to kind of share that sort of this thing with, but he still had the wits about him and the uh, I guess the lightheartedness to still enjoy, whatever it was that he was dealing with. So that was pretty cool, and I guess that's how life is. I guess you take the good with the bad. So
Yeah,
yeah, that was a pretty nice character to have.
yeah.
Like that whole I found the window thing was pretty fun. Yeah, that was cool.
I love the chaos he brought. Like I especially love the part where he's like, "Ooh, carrots," and then he just goes like
Oh
puts it.
yeah.
It's hilarious.
Uh,
But yeah, I love that scene. And I think yeah, some of the other supporting cast. While we don't spend a lot of time, Patrick Stewart's that's the Orf bit.
hmm.
The one played by Bella Ramsey, which is the kid who keeps asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah.
Yes, that was fun. Your Bull Eyes. I love the part where
Hmm.
Bull Eyes goes into the caravan
For the book, yeah.
for the book. So I think there were a lot of fun moments which I think like kids would enjoy a lot. But like I said, I think each of these sheep still had enough of emotional depth to give you the like even
Yeah.
that was it Cloud, I think, who basically, because Rebecca compliments the sheep, she does not tell
Yeah.
anybody. And I like the thing. What is it that they call that bracelet? The thing that never ends, or some
Yeah.
shit
The,
really
the
goes
thing
wrong.
never ends. Yeah.
It's so like really fun moments and like really smart moments. I think I'm glad that they didn't go like slapstick comedy, right? It could have easily been
Yeah.
really like really childish and just been almost like Muppet like, where you had humans interacting with just
Yeah. The nice thing was that even though a lot of them were just side characters with not a lot of dialogue, they still gave all of them personality. They like really put a lot of thought into like the different personalities that they wanted to kind of depict, and that was quite nice. Like you didn't have just people there for the sake of being there to occupy space, so that was nice.
yeah. Okay, so I guess we move on to the human cast, right? Obviously, we've got a couple of, I think recognizable faces. At least I knew, obviously, the butcher.
Mm,
I don't know. I didn't know Caleb. You have Emma Thompson as the lawyer.
yeah,
You had, I know the daughter from another show called The Bear. The officer is someone I know from the Succession. Succession. I didn't say it. Yeah, so couple of recognizable faces, but I think they do a decent job. I think for them, it's a little more, except for maybe Rebecca and slightly, I guess, to the police officer, but they're a little more caricature characters than like, really,
Yeah,
fleshed out.
yeah, and I think that's good. Only because I guess otherwise, probably the if they flesh out a lot in terms of all of the characters, then the movie gets, I think, probably stretched out a little bit too long for the type of movie that this was. So I think they showed just about enough in terms of the characters. Like, for example, Emma Thompson's lawyer thing, you don't know a lot about her, but you know she's kind of like this, no nonsense to the point, but also kind of this. There is sort of some sort of snobbish kind of thing where she like, okay, if you see a spade, you call a spade kind of thing. And
Yeah.
that's how the initial interaction with the officer was. And so, yeah, that was quite nice. Again, and also then speaking about the officer, I mean, he is this in terms of he is a fool, I guess, as Emma Thompson calls him. But again, like, there were certain things, yes, in terms of the sheep helping him, but like, I guess he noticed the pillowcase, yes, because it was on Mopple's head, but he did kind of then figure it out himself. So that it kind of gave you this. Yes, he is kind of a goofy, foolish kind of character, but there is some sort of thinking that goes on between those years. So
Yeah.
it was a nice mix in terms of how his character was. So I
I,
like that.
I like the fact that he knew that the sheep were kind of there. Like,
Mm.
sometimes you just be like so aloof and so stupid that you just like are guided to that place. But I like the fact that like you said, there was something in between those years, right? Like,
Yeah,
even when they dropped that book, he could have just done something stupid with that book. But the fact that he actually created that table of motive, this thing and all, was pretty cool. Like,
yeah.
you can see the, I mean, I guess it's also sad that he's the only police officer that's there in that town. Like, there's no one there to
Uh,
guide the poor guy. But yeah, it's hilarious that like, but it was nice that he was able to kind of put two and two together. Initially, when I thought like he had the hots for like the daughter, I was like, oh, this guy's gone. Like, he's not going to solve a thing. But I'm glad that they didn't make him, at least that one character, they didn't make him very like he's the fool, so he's only the fool.
yeah.
Um,
They kind of made him a little bit more complex than just that. So that was nice.
Yeah, because he is more integral than I guess like like the butcher, and I like the fact that the butcher is just plain like very root one villain of sorts,
Yeah,
right? Like, this is what I want. This is what. Same with Caleb, the father as well. I'm glad that we got to know about what that donation and all was. So little
yeah,
few hints there. Even the but I think that was also very noticeable. I think the was it the hotel owner or whatever, the cultural
yeah,
festival person. Like, you knew that she was pretty jealous when she thought that Rebecca was like she thought it was his not
love
wife,
it.
love
Okay.
interest. Yeah,
Yeah,
and she stole that card. So, but I'm glad. Like, I think each one played their role well enough that it didn't
yeah,
feel like, oh man, this is just a bit too cringy. I didn't feel cringy at all. I mean, easily these characters could have been extra cringy, but
yeah,
it was played off with enough subtlety, and I'm glad for that. But man, like, American actors doing British accents is so much worse than British actors doing American accents. Like, it's
yeah.
so noticeable that you're putting on a fake accent.
Yeah, and you also, I don't know if you noticed it, but like in some places, it still felt like it was an American talking. Like you're like, oh, okay. I mean, not that it gave you not that it took away anything from the
Yeah.
movie or anything like that way, but you just kind of like chuckle to yourself if if you ever notice it. You're like, got you there, but it was nice.
Yeah, I guess even the same with like Hugh Jackman because you know he's Australian, right? And you can
Yeah,
always hear that tinge of an Aussie accent in that English accent as well that he's trying to
yeah,
put. I'm like, so what? Like, does Mike Tysman make him Aussie? It doesn't really matter. Like,
yeah,
uh, but yeah, I really like it. I mean, the one thing we also got to talk about, I think the environment and just like the town in and of itself, the meadow, everything. I love the
yeah.
vibe. Like honestly, like take me there now. I would just want to s- spend time.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had an affinity for the countryside, and I guess in the UK, I mean, I think they've probably got that sort of thing is pretty stereotypical in the sense of like you have these massive expanses of fields and meadows and stuff like that, way with like one outhouse or like a camper van, yeah, somewhere in the middle of it or in one corner, and that's just them and no one else in the vicinity. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, but again, it just looked really beautiful and stuff like that way. And I mean, yeah, you picture, I think, proper English countryside that way. And so, yeah, it was a very nice setting. Um, and yeah, I think in terms of the different things, like even the town of Denbrook, like uh, that small area where they had that supposed cultural
Hmm.
festival and stuff like that way, very it was like very nice. I like the whole cobblestone streets and stuff like that. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah. Even I guess even also you talk about Caleb's farm in the night, right? It was really really eerie and spooky
Yeah,
because like you mentioned, it's this massive expanse of like just a meadow and field. So there's not going to be any lighting as such. You're just
yeah,
walking into the dark. Uh,
yeah. And with their weather, that mist and stuff like that way is very realistic and things like that. So it just added to that whole sort of environment and eerie feeling that they were trying to give. So that was quite nice.
I also like some of the other subtleties. You remember the part where I think Lily and Mopple first planned to leave like their meadow. They have to cross that road, right? And then
Yeah,
they're so scared that the chicken crosses the road. I'm like, oh, why did the chicken cross the road? But
yeah,
but dude, like every time they were like in that scene, every time that they were walking past, I or like when Sebastian was on that road, I was like scared like some car's gonna come in.
yeah. I think just before the chicken crosses, there is some sort of audio, and you're thinking, is a car coming or something like that? Yeah.
Because I was like they were going to make the first step and then or maybe like the chicken goes and the car hits them and they're like so shit scared. And I was like, oh, is that what they're gonna do? But I guess yeah, it was I like those small scenes rather than the entire thing. But like yeah, there were really nice moments throughout this thing, and I also like that entire winter lamb, the small kid, the really small baby. I like the fact that you know it was a cute little she lamb
Yeah,
kid no kid's goat lamb right
yeah,
yeah so lamb. Uh, so I like the sort of kind of prison break. I thought they were going to do a prison break, but kind of nice that I don't know what they were trying to make of that entire thing. So I think was it that George is one, I mean the daughter, and then the other one is the son, who, and I guess South
yeah.
Africa being green.
I think yeah, that's what they were trying to do. Yeah, it took me a while also initially. Like first, I was like, when the officer actually looks at, I'm like, what are they trying to say? Like, are they drawing like a family tree or something like that way? But yeah,
I think it
uh,
would be because they don't have the picture of Peter. So that's my thing. I was like, oh, they're gonna put like a picture of the killer there, right?
yeah,
But then when they linked uh Rebecca to George, and then they had the other lines. I was like, it's a family tree, but obviously they didn't have who the this thing was.
Yeah.
And I guess also, I'm guessing as because they're creatures and because they're sheep, they're not able to like write.
Mm.
They can't write like Peter because they don't know how to spell, I suppose.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty ingenious way of like trying to
But
say this is who it is.
yeah.
They can't, right? I don't think they did anything.
Yeah, I don't think so because like even to identify the book, they had to be like there's a train on it, right? So it was not about the name and stuff. It's just symbols and things like that. So
Yeah. And also what I really love was that like we are seeing the sheep talk, but I love the as perspective of like Rebecca watching like and they're just buying at each other.
yeah, that was
And
pretty fun.
because you could have easily made like the sheep talk and then like the humans are so surprised that sheep talk, right? But I like the
Yeah,
fact that you're just seeing uh, even when I think the police officer was narrating, I think he was doing his whole Poirot thing at the end where he was like explaining everything and he kept getting interrupted
yeah,
obviously by Emma Thompson's character. He's like, please can you just let me have this. uh,
yeah,
but as he was saying, I think even Lily was saying something, but all you can hear from behind is like bah bah, and he's like, "What the hell is happening?" Also the other part I loved is I think when they first go into the town, I think Lily and
mm,
Mopper like hide behind the headstone, and Sebastian's like they don't care. They no one cares. You're sheep. Why are
yeah,
you hiding?
yeah. I mean, those subtleties and those like uh I guess digs at one another were pretty nice to have. Again, it just added personality to all the characters, and so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Are we missing out on anything else? I think, like you said, I think we've pretty much touched upon everything in terms of the main aspects of this movie, and I guess also the undertones, right? Like I said, I think this is definitely I didn't expect this movie to be as good as it was gonna be. Honestly, like
Yeah.
I thought it was just gonna be a murder mystery with sheep. But having that emotional aspect really did wonders for it. And yeah, I really loved that in this movie. Took me some time to get into it. Like I said, I think because they were just setting up everything. But I think the
Yeah.
moment everything happens, you're like, oh, okay, it all pays off quite well, and it really
Yeah.
comes into its own.
I think that's what the movie got right was that yeah, maybe initially, like you said, it was a little bit this thing with the setup, but the payoff was quite good over there in terms of you saw how it added to the story eventually at the end, and so yeah, that was quite good.
Yeah, and there's no moment where I felt like I'm bored or I wanted to like skip a particular point because it was just too cringy. Like I was pretty much like, okay, I'm intrigued to know where this goes, and there's enough to keep me at least on the edge. But yeah, definitely, yeah, I don't know. I think I would have liked to see this in the theaters. I wouldn't have. I mean, it's one that I will be okay to pay. I mean, given what we spent on like to watch, I think this would have been a much better choice. Uh,
Yeah,
but honestly, yeah, I think this is something that if you have kids and if you're like you want to go for like a family viewing, this is definitely a fun one to go for. Fun, but also like enough emotional aspects to keep you engaged.
yeah.
Uh,
I think the only thing, again, what works well for this is like even though the emotional things are there for the adults. I don't think it's anything that's so complex that even the kids wouldn't get. And so it's not like things would be lost on them per se. So I think that was also quite nice. And in terms of watching it in the theater, I probably wouldn't have minded it so much, but maybe if there was a little bit more to the crime solving, I think maybe I would have been a little bit more like, yes, let's watch this in the theater, I guess.
yeah, I feel like if this had the Knives Out kind of mystery, But with the
Yeah.
emotional that they brought in, I would have been like, this is a easy 4.5 for me. Like this is insane.
Yeah.
I think that pace of the crime solving at some point, I was like, I really don't care who killed him. I'm so intrigued by just the emotional aspects and the backstory of the sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where maybe, but yeah, I think kudos for. It's hilarious to know that the guy who sort of wrote this movie is the same guy who directed the Last of Us TV show and Chernobyl. Like, can you, so he's definitely got the emotional aspect right. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
He definitely got those chops.
yeah, yeah. But I think the director is the guy who made the Minion movies and the Despicable Me movies.
Okay.
So it's fun. I think he's got the right balance of someone who's got really dark writing and
Yeah.
really emotional writing, but he's also got the fun of like a kids movie being there. So
Yeah.
overall fun. But yeah, I think with that we will conclude our review for this movie. I see how quickly we get through this with our names. But yeah, do let us know what you thought of the Sheep Detectives. I would definitely say this is one to recommend people to watch. I think like anybody watching it, you should at least have a go at this. And now that it's there available on streaming, definitely go watch it. And yeah, do let us know your thoughts. Follow us on Instagram and on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. We're putting out more fun content every day as well. So you can follow us on that. A lot of quizzes, fun stuff that we do head to head. And we will catch you all on our next episode. Until then, see you.